Hello, everybody. You're watching and listening to the Rude Horror Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus, and today I'll be talking to an actress, scream queen, Dani Thompson. She's been in films like Cute Little Buggers, Pumpkins, Axe to Grind, um, Christmas Sleigh, and Video Shop Tales of Terror 1 and 2, which I just found out not that long ago that a sequel's being made, and like 70 plus films. Like, just it's incredible. So I just want to say thank you so much, Dani, for taking time and coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
So first off, before we get into conversation about the films that you've worked on, what got you into the horror genre?
I've always loved horror films, and I didn't intend to just go down the horror route, but when I had finished drama school, I ended up doing one horror film, and then some of the crew on that were making another horror film, and it just kind of steamrolled and became a thing. So now it's become a thing. I quite like it.
Awesome. Yeah. Um, I looking through some of your films. Most of them were horror films, so I didn't know if
Yeah.
horror was like more like the thing that that you like to uh, just either be a part of, or I didn't know if this was just more like just work to you, or like are you like really passionate about the horror genre?
No, I am passionate about the horror genre. Like I said, I didn't set out just to do horror, but because I do love horror films, it's nice to be able to, make films in the genre that I love. And I feel like I've kind of found my niche. So now I think, people will book me just for horror, which it's fine. It's fine with me. I'm good with that.
Well, you do very well working within the horror genre, so I understand why you keep working in horror films.
I don't think I've actually made like 70 films or whatever, though. A lot of the time, films get put on IMDb, things that are going to be made, and then some of them don't ever happen. There are a few that my very early things that I did that never saw the light of day. So I wouldn't say I've done 70 because that's a lot. I've done a lot, but not that many.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was looking at your IMDb, and I seen that like you have music videos and stuff. Like you work on music as well.
A
Um,
little bit, yes.
so I,
Yeah, a little bit. I've released an album and I may do some more, but it's not, it's for fun really.
okay, for sure. What I did want I wanted to mention last year I had special effects artist Tracy Jane on the show, and she's worked on several films that have either been like released or are about to be released. That you're acting in the films,
Mhm.
and then you've also worked a lot with Lawrence Harvey on some of your films.
Yeah.
Um, so, what could you tell us about working on like the films Witches in the Sands and the Video Shop Tales of Terror and
Oh,
Mosaic? Like those are films that you and Tracy have been working on.
yeah. I mean, I work more with the directors. The Video Shop Tales Terror and Mosaic are both kind of the same team behind the production, and I've worked with them on Ice Cream on the Beach, which is how I met Alex Churchyard from Tiz Films. Um, and so Mosaic was him and his business partner Mike Holiday, and so and obviously Lawrence has been involved in some of those. Which other ones did? Witches of the Sand is Tony Marden, which is I started working with him. The first time I worked with him was on Beyond Fury, and he's a really good actor, a really good guy. So yeah, it tends to be people all work with each other in this. It's kind of a small industry here in the UK indie horror scene. Everybody knows everybody. So yeah, I mean they've all been a lot of fun. And Lawrence actually, I years ago. Give it a second. Did I disappear then?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. My phone keeps ringing, and it's like my phone doesn't ring all day, and then it rings when I'm on a podcast.
Of
I'll call
course.
it back after it is. So Lawrence, I actually interviewed years ago, I think before I was really even acting, and I had a little column in Haunted magazine, and it was when he did Human Centipede 2, and all of the rest of the cast had just a couple of questions for each of them, and everybody else would do it by email, and Lawrence wanted me to phone him, and because I'd seen the film, I was absolutely terrified of him. I was like, I don't want to speak to him. He's scary. He's creepy. But obviously now I've worked with him loads, and he's the nicest guy. Like, he's absolutely lovely. I don't even know how many films I've done with Lawrence now, but yeah, I mean, now he's a really good friend, and I'm no longer frightened of him.
Right. Yeah. I watched My Bloody Banjo the other day, and both you and Lawrence are in that film, and
Yeah,
as well as Lloyd Kaufman. I was surprised to see him on.
yeah.
Um, did you get to interact with him much on set, or
I
was
did.
he?
I have.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm in a scene with Lloyd. Actually, I think the only scene with Lloyd I'm in that in My Bloody Banjo. So it was a scene in a hospital or a doctor's surgery, and we kind of have a fight over an injection. That's.
right.
I mean, it's so long ago. That's what I remember.
Yeah, yeah. He played a doctor, and of
Yeah,
course he had to say some very comical lines, and uh,
yeah. I mean, loads of fun. So I don't know. He's also in Eating Miss Campbell. I think I have seen it, but that's kind of, it's not quite a sequel to My Bloody Banjo, but it's set in the same kind of film universe.
interesting, interesting. Yeah. That film, it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Drop Dead Fred or something like that, where the guy has an imaginary friend, and
Yeah.
his imaginary friend is always getting into mischief and messing with people. um do you think like that was maybe one of the influences on the film?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely one of the influences on the film for Liam. So I think it was that mixed with the kind of Helen Lotte movies. So for research, he made me watch a few old Helen Lotte movies, like Frankenhooker and was it Brain Dead?
Brain Damage, I think.
Brain Damage. So yeah, he made me watch a few of those to kind of get the vibe he was going for, and I think it was kind of a mishmash of those influences.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Now that you mentioned Helen Lauder, yeah, I can definitely see there's a lot of
Well,
influence there.
it's all set in a town called Henenlotter, so the imaginary town
Ah,
named after him.
makes sense now. um, and then there's another film I wanted to bring up. Um, that I actually had bought like several years back, and it I I don't know. I guess you could maybe consider it an Easter film, because like an Easter horror film, because there really isn't a whole lot of like killer bunny movies. So Cute
Okay.
Little Buggers.
Yes.
Do you got any stories about working on that one?
That was actually one of my quite early films. So usually, well, not usually, but sometimes you film things and it takes a good few years for them to release. So that was very early for me. I think we shot that around 2013, 2014, maybe.
Oh wow.
Um, they filmed on a farm. I mean, I only have a small role. We filmed on a farm, so we kind of camped in caravans, and I got sunburnt. You can't actually see it there. It's a scene where I actually go into the forest and take my. And I was like, you're just going to see that I'm glowing because it was so hot. It was the middle of summer, and I just wasn't expecting it to be quite so hot. So I was like, you're going to see me kind of glowing radioactive on screen, but luckily the lighting means that you don't.
Right. Yeah, it was one of those films, like just like first thought, watch like seeing the cover and everything. I'm like, okay, we're gonna get like, I don't know, somehow these little rabbits are gonna kill people, like Night of the Lepus or something. And
Yes, I've
and then come to find out that they're actually like aliens. So I
Right.
was just kind of like, okay, like this is definitely a twist I wasn't seeing coming.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. There was talk of a
yeah,
sequel, and it never happened. I mean, I think there were kind of, the script was in development, and I think I was meant to come back. So I think as an alien. So that, because obviously I didn't end well in that for me, and I was going to come back as an alien that had been, my body had been taken over by one of these alien bunnies. But it was actually a lot of fun to film, and I really enjoy working on green screen stuff, or with stuff that's not there. So I think people either love it or they hate it. Some people kind of like, a real person or something real to act to. I actually really enjoy like the imaginary world.
right. Yeah, it's definitely got a mixture of just like, fantasy, horror, just things that like only your imagination can think of, but yet it's on the screen for everyone to watch. Um, which like, those kind of films are just fun to watch for me. Like Leprechaun, like films like that just it messes with like I guess like holiday and just you know old folklore type of stuff that is just yet it's very far fetched, but yet it's just so entertaining and cheesy and
I think they
very
should.
silly. But
I think they should make some Easter horror. I mean, you get a Christmas horror film comes out every year, right? I think they should do more. I don't know, scary chickens or killer Easter eggs. I don't know. To
right,
make Easter horror a thing.
right, yeah. I mean, you could definitely get something going with like a sequel to Cute Little Buggers and um,
I think that ship
maybe
failed. That was a long time ago now. I can't see that happening now, but it would have been fun had it happened at the time.
for sure, for sure. Um, I did want to mention another film that you worked on called Axe to Grind.
Yes.
And that film also had Debbie Rochon in it, which
Mhm.
she's very well known here in the indie horror scene in the United States, working on trauma films. Um, what was your experience like working on that one? Because that one had a, I wouldn't say like a meta type of thing, but it was sort of meta in a way because you know the actresses like yourself and all the other actresses in the film were playing like scream queens and you know going to like this abandoned like motel or
It's a hospital.
hospital, yeah, and just then it goes to like the classic recipe like slasher films.
Yes.
um I don't want to spoil anything. I think it's a good movie that people should watch. But what was your experience like working on that film?
It was really good, actually. Obviously, Debbie had actually just been to the UK, and we just shot Serial Caller. And I think she came over for a week. We shot Serial Caller in 2 weeks, and then so she went back. So she had a week back in the States. But we finished Serial Caller, and I had one day off, and then I flew over to LA to shoot Axe to Grind. So it was amazing. I mean, obviously, I'd come straight from England, so the weather was great out there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. So we shot in a place called Linda Vista, which is an old disused hospital. I believe they shot the pilot for ER there, but obviously a long time ago. Garbage shot a music video there. There's a film called Boo, a horror ghosty paranormal film called Boo. They shot that there. So it's been used for filming a lot, and people tend to use different rooms and then just leave things as they are. So I mean, one room had this really creepy kind of dentist chair just in the middle, and it just had a light shining down on it, and it was like, why is that there? Why is the light on in this room?
Hmm.
But we shot, I think I was over there for a week. I think they shot obviously other scenes for a bit longer, but it was nice to be out there to shoot, in the States, and then also have a bit of time off to do some sightseeing.
Right? Yeah, very cool. What other like places around the world have you filmed at
Um,
besides like the UK and the United States?
So the only other place I've shot other than the UK is Bulgaria, which was Christmas Sleigh. So the film Christmas Sleigh is actually set in Scotland. So the script was written about, this group of 20-something-year-olds go off for Christmas in a cabin in the snow. But because you can't guarantee there will be snow in Scotland, I mean, usually there is, but there might not be. They booked Bulgaria. I think it was also worked out cheaper because they thought we can guarantee snow. And we shot in February. And I actually, as part of my contract, I was like, right, you have to buy me proper snow boots because I don't want to have cold feet. So that was my only diva demand. They bought me these snow boots, and it was super warm out there. So there was snow on the ground that had frozen and wasn't melting, but yet the sun was out and it was actually pretty warm. And so we actually had to go right up into the mountains to get that one snow scene of the girls having a snowball fight and building a snowman. We actually had to go right up into Borovitz to actually shoot that. And we had this driver who in this, minibus. And when you're driving around the sides of mountains and he's zooming around, and all there is to stop you falling off if he goes off of these trees. So we don't have roads like that in England, or, it's pretty flat here, no mountains. So, well, there are, but small ones, not ones you can really drive off. So that was an experience.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And then this isn't going to be your first film being in like a Christmas horror settings. You got another one you're working on. Nightmare on 34th Street, I believe, is the title.
Yes, that film has been going for years. I shot my scenes, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago. It was a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
But I've been guaranteed it might be out. I've been guaranteed it might be out. That's like a oxymoron. It might be out next Christmas, maybe. Could be.
Okay.
Possible. I think they were still shooting extra scenes. It's an anthology, so there's lots of little bits. So, yeah, hopefully it'll be out, because I always think it's a shame when things just disappear.
Right. And then just, I mean, it's such a good title, to play on like Miracle on 34th Street. I'm interested to see like if there's going to be like any callbacks to that film, or of Miracle on 34th Street. Like, is there going to be like little Easter eggs, or is this just going to be?
I honestly have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't. I think I saw my scene. I don't know what the rest of the film's about. I have no clue, so I can't help you there.
Okay. All right. I guess I'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
And for I don't know, kind of going back to Cute Little Buggers, I forgot to mention on the film, you also act with Caroline Munro. She was in the film as well, which, within the horror genre, she's kind of legendary status with, the Hammer horror films, and one of my favorites, Maniac.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get to interact with her much on the set, or was she kind of on set at a different time when you weren't around?
She was on set at a different time, but I have met her since then, and she's absolutely lovely. In fact, I've met her many times since then. So, yeah, she's actually in another film that I'm in, which I also don't get to work with her, that should be coming out next year, which is called The Pocket Film of Superstitions. So she's also in that, in Tom Lee Rutter's segment. So
Awesome.
But yeah, Caroline's lovely.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad to see that she's still acting, and especially in the horror genre. That's amazing.
Yeah, she's got a massive fan base, obviously, from like the Hammer stuff and the Bond stuff. So yeah, she still does.
Right, for sure. Yeah. And I also wanted to mention that you've done some modeling for like Rick Melton. He did kind of like a 12-piece erotic horror series and had you feature in the paintings.
That was the plan, but there only ended up being 6. So it was going to be 12. He kind of got sidetracked. So I need to give him a nudge. Rick, hurry up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the ones that I've seen just, like they're amazing. I mean, he's just an amazing artist in general.
Yeah, that came about. I met him at Darkfest, and it came about from there. And they've actually used one of his on the current Darkfest cover, Dark Side magazine cover. Sorry, the Darkfest is kind of a small festival that they have in London, in conjunction with Dark Side magazine, and Caroline goes there. And yeah, I met him at that last year, so 2022. And then from that, he was like, right, we're going to do the series with you. So he did a Vampira, or is it Vampira? Vampirella, maybe? The one in the red. I'm not sure.
Vampirella.
Vampirella. So he started with that. The one on the cover of Dark Side is with, it's a vampire one. I'm a victim. But I actually didn't model for him for any of it. I didn't have to pose for him. He just paints from, like, he just says, send me a few pictures so he can, get to know my face. And he worked with that. So yeah, I didn't actually have to go and, pose naked for him at any point.
Wow.
Probably would, but I didn't.
Wow. That's amazing that, he can make, the artwork look like you. And then just from looking at pictures, that's.
Yeah. I think
awesome.
I just sent him like a mix of headshots and other modeling shots. And yeah, he worked with those.
Wow. Very cool. Well, one question I like to ask a lot of guests, just because I like to hear everyone's answers.
Okay.
What would be like your favorite Universal or Hammer horror film, or like Universal monster?
Oh, I don't know. I do you know, this is terrible because I've actually got a Hammer box set, and I've got the Universal Monsters box set, and I haven't actually looked at any of the Universal Monsters box set. I haven't watched any. So I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know. I really haven't watched many. I know that's really bad, as I should have, and they're all literally sat in my cupboard. But
well, I mean, that's okay. Like is there like any character that that you kind of like more than others?
I mean, I guess Dracula. I do love vampires, and I actually did get to shoot. I did a photo shoot years ago at Bray Studios, which was where Hammer used to shoot, and it's still film studios, but not owned by them anymore. But they've still got the big sound studios. And one of the photographers I work with, he knows the manager, so he let us use one of the old sound studios, which was the one where I think the Frankenstein's laboratory, or Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory, was built, back then. So we actually did do a photo shoot. I've been to the place, haven't watched the movies.
Wow, that's amazing. That's more than I can say. Jeez. What was it? I was going to ask you something. Gosh, of course this would happen.
This is why you have notes.
Right. It was going to be something Universal Monster related.
Go on then.
Oh yeah.
Try. I know.
This was a while ago, but I had an Italian composer on my podcast, and he had worked on making the music for Tale of the Mummy, and he actually won an award for I want to say maybe that film, but it was when he got the award, Christopher Lee actually handed him the award. And for him, that was one of the greatest moments that he, that could have happened for him, as far as working within the horror genre. So, I just got to say, Christopher Lee is one of the greatest Draculas to ever play,
Yes.
and especially with Hammer horror films, he's amazing.
I have seen some of the Dracula ones, but I couldn't tell you which ones because there's a lot. So, I've seen some.
Right. Yeah, the titles are just all over the place, and he's played in most of the Hammer horror film ones, so it's you're not going to know which one it is unless you have the title in your hands, if you watch it on video, or hit the info button.
Yeah, think with my DVD box set, you get a little booklet so I can read stuff and learn as I go.
For sure, for sure. And I noticed um you kind of like more slasher films rather than like some of the other ones, like, you know, zombies aren't really your thing, but you like
I
um
once once you've seen a zombie, you've seen a zombie. I mean, it's like, where do you go with zombies? Apart from this series, The Last of Us, that have you been watching that? So I guess they're not quite zombies. They're kind of overtaken by fungus creatures, and I'm loving that. But I do feel like zombies, it's like once you've seen one, you've seen them all. So I think I'm not a massive fan of zombie stuff. Some of it's good. I like the Wreck movies. You know, some of them are good, but yeah, I'm not the biggest zombie fan.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I I I don't mind zombie films. I think over the years, I think they've just kind of gotten to a point. It's like, what where can we go with these films,
Yeah.
because a lot's already been done. I mean, it's hard to beat Romero's zombie series, Fulci's zombie films. I'm a fan of those still, but as far as like the newer stuff goes, like 28 Days Later, it's not really a zombie film, but it's pretty close.
Mm.
um I
That
really
was
like.
shot from me.
I'm
That
sorry,
film.
what was that?
That was shot just down the road from me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
um I was trying to think when I talked about this film on my podcast a while back, but there is um something cool about that film, like just behind the scenes, where they can only shoot scenes from, like, I think they only had like an hour to film because um of all the traffic and stuff that
Hmm.
would you know happen throughout the day, and just to be able to get those shots where no one's on the road, like it's just completely empty. I think they maybe had like an hour max to film as much as they could before traffic starts appearing.
Yeah, because
And
it's on the A12. It's like one of the main roads that go around London. So it's a busy road all of the time.
right. And that was fascinating to me. And then also there's like I want to say like a semi, or like a big truck that was on its side, or maybe it was a car. All right, I don't know. It was like a big vehicle on its side, or like flipped upside down, and they didn't have like any permits to do that, and so they had to like just really film that like really quick, and then try to get it back up to normal. And I
Right.
thought that was pretty cool, just to see or hear about like behind the scenes stuff of you know big studio films trying to um, pull stuff like that off is pretty cool. But anyways, trailing off from what I'm trying to get at, slasher films.
Yeah.
Um, what type of slasher films would be like ones that you like to watch more than others?
Okay, so I think for me, it was like my end of high school years, and that's when the late 90s, when that kind of resurgence of the slasher movie came back. So for me, Scream was probably the film that made me really love the genre. And actually, I was in Canada actually when I watched it. I wasn't here. I was in Canada over the summer visiting family, and I think we were sat in my cousin's basement, a group of us, and we watched Scream, and I just loved it. And then obviously I came back to the UK, and then it was like the I Know What You Did Last Summer and Urban Legend. So all of that, that real 90s kind of glossy, nice budget horror. And then things like Final Destination, which is not a slasher, but it was very similar cast, wasn't it? There was obviously a group of actors that used to get used for everything. Um,
Right.
and The Craft, which again not a slasher, but another film that I love. So for me, that kind of late 90s horror was just, all the late 90s, early noughties was just like my favorite era of horror.
Um, did you ever see the movie Valentine?
Yeah, do you know, I watched it this week. Well, it's Tuesday, so I watched it on the weekend. I had a friend over and we were doing a podcast about Valentine's Day, ready for Valentine's Day. And
Hmm.
came up and she hadn't seen it. So we did actually watch it just a few days ago.
All
So
right. Yeah. You bringing up like that slasher era reminded me of that film because, Valentine's Day is coming up. I
yeah,
think I watched it. I watched it back in the day on cable TV. Actually, I I remember
I would
that.
be an Angel fan. So obviously David Boreanaz was in it. Is that, I don't know if that's even how you say his name, but yeah,
Mhm.
I watched it at the time, but I have it in my collection.
Yeah, you know, I I like it. I know a lot of people don't really care for it, or it just kind of gets snubbed.
Wrong,
But
wrong. I really like it, and it was kind of one of my influences when I wrote Serial Caller, like having a big amount of things happen in one location. Um, and it was actually one of the films that kind of influenced me in a way with that.
for sure, yeah. I know. Or I don't know, like oddly, or I guess like it's kind of I would say disappointing, but um, Katherine Heigl in the film, I thought she was excellent in the film, but from what I've read, she absolutely hates that movie and she regrets even working on that film.
Well, she was only
Uh,
in it a tiny bit. She had like one scene at the beginning. I think that was before she really got big, wasn't it? It was like a very early thing for her.
yeah, yeah, one of her, I guess, like dipping into like more or less like the rated R film scene.
Hmm.
Um, it might be one of the films where maybe I don't know which film actually got her big push, but it was definitely close to
Hmm.
around that time. But she wasn't in it that long, but
No.
from what I've seen her in the film, I didn't think she did bad at all. Like I thought it was a great scene actually.
Yeah, it's the kind of opener, wasn't it? Kind of, you know, which is sometimes it's good just to go in and do that little bit and and then be done.
Right? Like get your big scene to where people will remember, a rememberable scene is where you want to be at.
I mean, that's true. It is a memorable scene because it is, the opening scene generally is.
Right, right.
So
But yeah, that film uh I think is underrated. I think that film is a film where people should go back and watch.
yeah.
Um
On Valentine's Day, if they're single and they've got nothing to do on Valentine's Day, it's the perfect thing to do. Or if you're not single, make your partner watch it on Valentine's Day.
right, right. Yeah, there's not too many Valentine horror films. I think
My Bloody Valentine.
it's yes, yes. I mean that one's the big one.
Hmm.
There's also a fan film that's I think maybe had its premiere either over the weekend or recently. They had it playing at a horror convention over here in the US. I think it's called Valentine Bluffs, something
Okay.
like that. And it's like it's a fan film to the My Bloody Valentine film. And apparently that one's doing really well. I've heard good reviews about it. So maybe we'll kind of see a little resurgence of Valentine's Day horror films as well as hopefully Easter films.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything, any yearly event, let's, make them a thing.
Right. Right. I'm all for holiday horror films.
Yeah.
I like them a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
look at Eli Roth is finally going to make his Thanksgiving horror film.
I don't know much about Thanksgiving. I don't have.
So all right, the story behind that one is um Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino made the Grindhouse films back in or at least they were released back in 2007, and it played as a double feature at the movie theater. And I think Planet Terror was first. That was Robert Rodriguez's, and then Quentin Tarantino's was Death Proof. Well, in between the movies at the movie theater, they had fake trailers, and
Okay.
uh, Eli Roth's was this movie called Thanksgiving, and it was basically like a slasher film with like a killer pilgrim, like a pilgrim killer. There's several scenes of just like quick scenes of the killer killing everybody, like in typical slasher form. And there was some shocking stuff on there that I probably won't say. You'd have to watch it. But I think like it was so intriguing to a lot of people to where they're like, man, like why hasn't he made this into a full feature film? Like this is brilliant. And so years later, actually earlier this year, he mentioned how he was actually going to film a full length feature of Thanksgiving. And I think everyone's just kind of going a little crazy and about like, yes, it's finally going to get made.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's I guess that's some more holiday horror to look forward to.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, slasher films, they're definitely something that I think will be around probably forever. I mean, just the formula of slasher films is brilliant, and I think it keeps the younger people into horror as well. Has everything that that you could want from a horror film.
I think they always
Um,
have comedy in them as well. So the dialogues always, you always get characters that have some quite fun dialogue, and I think they're like just a bit lighter. So as much as I love things like Saw and but the gorier stuff is good, but it's not for everybody. So I think for people who are not really into that whole kind of torture thing, slashes are kind of a way into watching horror without it being too much. And I love a jump scare. No, I know some people don't, but I do. So I think slashes, a little bit of comedy, some good jump scares, good script. I think yeah, they've always been my favorite.
and typically, it's about like a group of teenagers going somewhere, and then they get killed one by one. I don't know. There's something about just the fact that teenagers are the ones getting killed rather than say a group of elderly people are going on this camping trip. Like there's something about
Yeah,
see,
I'm not a teenager anymore, so I think it's about time we did some group of elderly went on a camping trip and got killed. I think
right,
that happened. Or yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to say too much because I'll come up with an idea here and give it away.
right, right. But yeah, I mean, I've never seen a slasher film where a group of elderly people break out of a nursing home, uh, and
That really needs to happen.
right. I'm
Yeah.
surprised no one's thought of that yet.
Yeah. Well, you've just told on YouTube, so someone's going to do it now, and it was going to be your idea.
Ah, I better get like a trademark on that before someone else does.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I think idea. And also older actors. Um, I watched a film last year at a festival, and the lead was an older lady, and it was like there's not a lot of roles for a much older cast. So that would actually be good. It would give older actors a chance to do something, get their teeth stuck into something. It'd be
right?
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I would watch the film if it ever got made. Sounds interesting. Um, there was a couple of slashers that I wanted to bring up just because I don't know if you've watched them or not, but I thought they were pretty interesting. Um, I guess you could consider this one a slasher film, but there's one called Cradle of Fear, and I think it was made in the UK.
Okay.
Um, that one stars Danny Filth from Cradle of Filth, um, and that one's streaming on Tubi. So if anyone wants to watch that one, but it's about like a locked up serial killer um, who dispatches his satanic servant to exact his brutal revenge on people. And it has a little bit of everything. Like it has uh, tons of blood and gore. I don't really consider it gore, but there's tons of blood in that film.
Okay.
There's nudity, and people that are maybe Cradle of Filth fans see the lead singer pretty much play the lead through the whole film. And from what I've read, and this makes sense, but the director of that film directed several Cradle of Filth music videos. So I think that they built the relationship through either the music videos, and then decided like, hey, let's make a horror film. And surprisingly, I'll be honest, I didn't really have high hopes for that one, but surprisingly, that one was pretty interesting, and I enjoyed it actually.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen that, but I did recently watch, and I don't know the name of it, the Foo Fighters horror film.
Oh yeah, yeah. Studio 666.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked that. I mean, it was kind of silly, but it was very watchable.
Right. Well, that's like what we were saying earlier with like like with typical slasher films, like there's got to be some humor in there, and I think they definitely pulled off the humor very well. And then also just being the fact that they played themselves as the Foo Fighter
Yeah.
uh, uh, band, and just playing themselves in kind of like this meta way. And man, they pulled it off really well. I really enjoyed that film.
Yeah.
It kind of had like a mixture of like slasher, but yet like Evil Dead kind
Yeah.
of tone.
Yeah. I
Tons
really,
of gore and blood.
yeah, fun.
Um, let's see. Do I have another fun horror film on here?
I see.
Um, I kind of wrote like a couple more serious ones rather than fun ones, but there's one like horror film that I think maybe needs like a bigger release, because there's really not a big release of it, but it's called it's called Body Count from 1986,
Okay.
directed by Ruggero Deodato. So this is like an Italian slasher film from the late 80s, and you could definitely tell like the film was really inspired by like the Friday the 13th films, Halloween, like just that slasher resurgence in the 80s. I think the Italians really wanted to capture their take on a slasher film, rather than be stuck with like the giallo genre of like the murder mystery type of angle.
Mm-hmm.
But the film is kind of like a typical film. Like it's about like a group of teenagers. They go to like they go camping at like an abandoned campsite, and it was formerly Indian burial ground. And
It
then
sounds right up my street, but I haven't seen it.
yeah, I was really surprised at how much I really enjoyed that slasher film, and it really hasn't had like a Blu-ray release or anything like that. And the soundtrack's amazing. I mean, Claudio Simonetti from Goblin, and then he did terrific with his solo career. Still, um, he's got an amazing soundtrack on the film, which I think goes a long way. If you have a good soundtrack in your film, especially like a slasher film like that, you you got me in tune to what's on the screen. And then yeah, someone in the comment mentioned David Hess was also in the film, and David Hess being from Last House on the Left in the United States, directed by Wes Craven. And then he also worked with Ruggiero on Last House, or not Last House on the Left, but gosh, what movie is that? Help me out here, William. House at the Edge of the Park, I think.
Okay.
It's at the edge of the park. My bad. So I think they, from working on that film, that was kind of that was more like House on the Left. I'm getting all these house movies mixed up.
Yeah.
And that was more of like a home invasion type of film rather than a slasher. But I think knowing David from that film, he came back later to the Body Count film, and I think in the United States that film was or wait. I don't know. I had it written somewhere. In the UK, it goes by a different title of like something vacation.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
And I thought I wrote it down, but I guess not. Or you know what? I got it mixed up. I'm thinking of Sleepaway Camp. In the UK, it's called Nightmare Vacation.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I got that mixed up. Yeah, I would say, like what I'm trying to say in a nutshell, check out Body Count if you haven't seen that one, because I feel like, if more people start watching that film, like it's worth a watch. So,
Okay.
But yeah, what if you can even say much about like what would be like some of the newer films that you're working on that
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 I'm
are either
working.
going to be released soon or
Well, we just had Horror on Sea Film Festival, which is in Southend, hosted by Paul Cotgrove, which is an amazing festival over 2 weekends. And I actually was in 6 films that screened. So one of them was Power Tool Cheerleaders versus the Boy Band of the Screeching Dead, which was directed by Pat Higgins, produced by Charlie Bond. And that's a fun musical, actually. It's a horror musical. Got to sing a song. I didn't get to be one of the cheerleaders. I was actually played one of the cheerleading coaches, but I did get to shake some pom-poms, which has always been a dream. We don't really have cheerleaders here, and I've always wanted to be one. So I've got to live my, American high school dream through that movie a little bit. So that should be released hopefully soonish. They're in talks with distribution at the moment. Another film that screened there was Horoscopes, which is an anthology by Myco Pictures, MJ Dixon. And he actually asked 12 people to direct a small segment in the anthology. We had a pickening live on his stream where they picked names out of the hats. And I actually directed my first piece for that. And he gave me Gemini. So I had to write and direct a piece, which the title had to be Gemini, it had to be horror, and it had to be between 5 and 7 minutes long. So that premiered at Horror on Sea and is screening again at Romford Horror Festival this month, February. And I'm in the works of Horoscopes 2. So for Horoscopes 2, they gave me Dragon. I've finally come up with an idea and I've written a script. So that's in pre-production at the moment. And the other one is obviously, you've mentioned Video Shop Tales of Terror, which was the brainchild of the lovely Sing Lau. So every year at Horror on Sea, he puts on a video shop installation. So basically builds a video store. One who has a film in sends him a poster and he creates video box cases. And over the years, it's just got bigger and bigger. And then I think he was like, no, we can make this an anthology. So lots and lots of different directors are part of that. So within that, I worked with Tom Lee Rutter. I worked with Andy Elias, I think that's how you say his name, Michael Fausti, MJ Dixon again, and Alex Churchard from his films. So that was Video Shot Tales Terror. The second one is in the works. And I think I've actually got a quiet start to the year this year. So there's a couple of people that have said they may be doing something this year. So Kamal Yildirim and Michael Fausti again, hopefully we'll be working with them at some point soon.
Nice. With the video shop Tales of Terror, you play like kind of like a horror host, right? Like you kind of play the scenes like in between the anthologies.
Yeah, that was kind of afterwards. I think that came about. They decided to kind of host it, so I did that, and I have shot that part for the second one. I haven't shot for any of the films in the second one. I don't know if I'm doing any of those. It's up to the individual directors to decide. I think a third has been announced or hasn't been announced. Maybe I've just announced it and shouldn't have. But yeah, I
Oh,
think they are thinking of a third as well. So yeah, the horror host, and then because in Ice Cream on the Beach, the character I played, Paula Valentine, she was an actress, and that's just part of the story in Ice Cream on the Beach, where somebody's just watching a film and it's her. So they kind of said, you know what, if instead of you can't be in all of the films, but you could play Paula playing characters. So it's kind of like a yeah, like a few deep in there. I think in one of them I'm actually playing Paula playing another actress as well, so it gets complicated.
hmm, interesting. Um, with like the first, I guess like yeah, the first one. Has that been like I don't know if that's been like released on streaming or anything. Maybe it's just played
No,
festivals or
yeah, so at the moment it's just in festivals. So it premiered at Ice Cream at Horror on Sea and Romford Horror Festival. Romford Horror is at the end of February in Essex in England, and it's going to be screening there. And apparently it's an uncensored version, so I haven't seen the uncensored. Well, the first time I saw it was last week at Horror on Sea, so I don't know what the difference is with the uncensored. But yeah, I think at the moment it's just festivals, and then there'll be
right on, right on. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that film just because I love me a good anthology film
have they not
and
there yet? You'll have to ask. They might.
catch that.
I said you have to ask them for a screener. They might send one for review purposes. In fact, they were looking for people who do reviews, so you can just
Oh,
message them.
oh.
We'll hook
All
you
right,
up.
yeah, I'll definitely have to message them because I think I even yeah, hook me up.
I'll hook
I
you up.
think yeah, I actually I think I donated a little bit to the Indiegogo campaign. So just because I'm really intrigued as just I like the concept of the film idea. So yeah, I'm really anxious to check it out.
Okay. Well, I'll link you to one of the directors afterwards.
All right. Awesome. Um yeah, like is there anything else that you'd like to mention as far as like any stories that you have on like some films that you've worked on or anything that you'd like to say to the fans?
God. Do you know, because I've been so busy, I tend to forget. So there's a film I shot called Mannequin, which is still not out yet. And that was about 3 summers ago. It was pre-lockdown, and we actually had to camp on set. So Lawrence is in this film. So the film was set around a campsite and a mannequin farm actually, which actually exists. It's a lady who repurposes mannequins, and at one point there's a pile of about 3,000 mannequins. It's very creepy. But because we were shooting around this campsite and there's nothing else around there, we had to camp. So I actually went practice camping first before I kind of 100% agreed to do the movie, because I was like, if I hate camping, then that's a lot of days camping. But it turned out I'm really good at camping. I really liked it. So did the film, and actually two of the girls on the film are now literally my best friends. We formed a little girl band together. We released one whole song, but we have since been camping, and we do lots of outdoorsy stuff, lots of hikes and things together. So that's Megan Lockhurst and Cheryl Need. They're also both actresses in the film. So yeah, that film's given us this kind of lifelong friendship. But Lawrence was actually on the movie as well. He also camped. And I ended up catering because we were living on, like making sandwiches and pot noodles. I was like, look, we need a proper meal. And there was a kitchen on this farm and we were allowed to use the kitchen. So because of the makeup I had on, they kind of got me finished first so I could shower. And then I ended up cooking everybody like a proper evening meal around this big table. So Lawrence was there and the girls. I had my little dog that I used to have. She was on set too. I think she's made it into the movie, actually.
Huh.
I think scored herself a role for being cute. But
Awesome.
yeah, I tend to forget things that when I've been on set. It's like you go, you do it, it's a whirlwind, and then you leave.
Right. Was like, I guess, like, is there like anything like wild that happened on the set, or like was there like anything dangerous that happened on set while you were working on a film?
No, I mean they tend to keep us. Well, no, I say this actually. I say they tend to keep us safe. But on the mannequin set, one of the crew, he's actually like a fire eater, and so he taught us how to do some stuff with fire. So that's probably a little bit dangerous. But generally they keep us safe. I don't like spiders. That was the worst thing about that. In my tent, all these tiny little spiders used to like come into the porch bit of my tent. So I'd try and leave the bedroom bit, and there's all these spiders hanging from the ceiling. So I would just scream, and the makeup artist used to come running. Alex would come and rescue me. So he was the SFX artist, and he's actually going to be working on my dragon film. So you meet all these people, you use them again, work with them again.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Spiders.
Not a spider fan, huh?
Spider fan, and I think on Bad Moon Rising, the director was trying to put me in, like, go and hide in this bush. I was like, I'm not hiding in a bush. That's where spiders live. We'll have to change that bit. So, yeah.
So probably safe to say I won't see in too many spider films in the future.
Not if there's real spiders in them. Well, I say this, it's the little scuttly spiders. I think tarantulas, like big spiders, I don't think I've never held one. I haven't been that close to one, so I don't know. But I don't think they're quite as scary. And I think because they're more creature-like and they're not so fast, they don't seem to scuttle.
Right.
So I don't know. In my mind, I'd like to hold one, but if it came to it, I probably.
As long as like it has like the venom taken out of them, like they're like, pet spiders.
I don't know. I'm fine with snakes. I'm fine with lizards. I'm fine with rats. It's just spiders.
For sure.
Horrible creatures.
Well, Dani, is there anything that like you'd like to plug on the show, like any websites or like any merch sites or anything that the fans can check out?
Well, my website's www.dani-thompson.com. My Twitter's recently been hacked, so if you'd like to follow my new Twitter, it's Miss Dani Teeze 2, TEEZE. So my Miss Dani Teeze Twitter got hacked a few weeks ago, and I can't get it back. They also stole my email, these hackers. So if you're out there,
no.
And if you're in a Hotwell, they will never know. And Instagram's Miss Dani Teeze.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I will make sure to put the links in the show notes so people can check out your website and your social medias.
Yeah, I need to get back up to my 15,000 followers. I've got about 97 on Twitter now. So I only restarted it a couple of days ago. I wasn't going to. And I'd walked into my corridor and I could smell fish and chips, which I don't know, that's not really a big thing out there, right? But I love the smell. I don't even eat fish, but it's just the vinegar and the chips. And I needed to tweet about it. So I restarted my Twitter just because of that. That was it.
Nice. Well, hopefully this podcast will get you some more followers on Twitter.
I like an extra few.
All right. Yeah, Dani, thank you so much for taking time coming on here and talking about the horror genre. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And for the live viewers, thank you all for tuning in. I had a fun conversation and seeing everyone comment on the live stream. This has been a lot of fun. So on my end of things, if you want to follow the Rude Horror Podcast on social medias, anywhere from like going to the website that I have, or just everything Root Horror Podcast in general, you can go to www.linktree.com/Root Horror Podcast. And, you can follow the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the YouTube as well for the listeners that listen on the podcast platforms like Spotify, um, Pandora Radio or iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, like wherever you listen to podcasts. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, definitely go to the linktree.com/Root Horror Podcast and subscribe, because I'm going to be doing a lot more videos and just, more content on the live streams and the YouTube channel in general. So definitely subscribe and stay tuned for the next one.